Welcome back to the Act 2 podcast, a podcast for the real-life working screenwriter. I am Tasha Hugh.
And I am Josh Hallman.
As a reminder, Act 2 is a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter, of which this podcast is just one of our many initiatives. So thank you for joining us here. You can find another initiative on our Patreon starting November 30th. So check out our socials, check out here for the link as well. And then, DM us if you'd like questions, topic suggestions, what the hell is our Patreon, all of that, we'll take it. You can reach out to us at ActTwoWriters@gmail.com, all spelled out, or on our Instagram and Twitter at ActTwoWriters. I'm there as well. I'm Story Thursday on Instagram or Tasha 3.0 on Twitter.
I am Joshua Hallman on Twitter, Josh Hallman on Instagram. And this is a first today, Tasha.
Is it?
I am in my daughter's bedroom recording a podcast.
You are a multitasker.
Highlight, low light, don't know, but I'm here. I'm here.
We'll find out.
We're going to find out. We are going to find out. Listeners, I apologize if you hear someone in the background. Listen, children get sick from time to time. Parents have to stay home with them. There's a lot going on. You're a parent, and this is what you have to do. So I'm here.
You're about to get sick too.
No. I don't get sick. I just break my ankle.
It's weird. Well, today we are going to talk about clarity of concept in a pilot. What does that mean? Why do people ask for it? Why does my manager always ask for it? Josh and I both had a recent experience in our writers group where both of our problems were clarity of concept in our pilots. So we're going to talk about what the hell that means and all of that. But before we do that, This Week in Writing.
This Week in Writing.
This Week in Writing.
So this is a Mike Flanagan story. Okay, this is what happened. Tasha, Dave, and myself were all having a conversation. And I brought up the fact that years and years ago, I was working at a company that was worked in distribution, and I was the creative exec there. I didn't really know what I was fully doing there. That company helped get Mike Flanagan's first movie, Absentia, distribution. And I was telling Tasha and Dave that I was like, yeah, I met Mike Flanagan. This was 12 years ago, something like that. And I met him at a very early stage in his career, to which both of you were a little surprised by me
freaked out because we talk about him all the time about how we're so inspired by his work. And Josh has just kept quiet. He's just kept this story to himself.
The important thing about this, and why this is important, and Tasha and I had talked about this, was Flanagan started where everyone else started. As a matter of fact, this is not me trying to say one thing or another, but I saw a Kickstarter of Mike Flanagan, which was great. At that time, Kickstarter, it maybe is still a very big thing, but he basically shot this film on his own dime, through Kickstarter and on his own dime. And it was this indie film. I remember watching this film and being like, this dude's awesome. And it was obviously an indie film. I swear to God, I don't mean to sound like this thing. And I remember meeting him and a group of his friends, and it was at the office. I fully got behind it.
In my head, it's like a myth. It's like Josh walked into his boss's office and was like, you need to buy this man's movie. He is a genius. He's going to go so far. And your boss didn't believe you. And Josh had to throw down his weight. And
No. Well, as a matter of fact, the company was like a middleman between the filmmaker, and so we didn't buy anything. There was no purchase of anything. It was more of the assistance of just trying to get it out there. And I remember just loving this film. But this is all to say, it was it's something anyone could do. You could film a movie, you could go out, you could find distribution, and now you can go on to do some of the most amazing work over the last 10 years, and it can happen.
Yeah.
That's my This Week in Writing. Am I taking credit for his career? I don't know. Listen,
you decide.
Listen, that's up to you. But no.
It's great. I mean, and I would encourage people to go and find the Kickstarter because it's like, oh, he's one of us.
So I mean, you watched it?
That's how it feels. Yeah, I watched the video on the Absentia Kickstarter, and it's Mike Flanagan talking to the camera, asking for money, and being quirky and funny, and it's great. It's great because yes, like, I think, and this is Flanagan, it's Spielberg, it's everybody who inspires you. Like, we all think they're sort of like these gods amongst men, and they have like a secret sauce. And in some ways they do, right? They have a talent, they have a creativity that clearly sparks with a lot of people. But their careers, in terms of their careers and how they're built, they start like everybody else. There are clear steps we can all take to become these big directors and big writers. And I think that's an important thing to remember, because I think as screenwriters, it just feels like a dream. It's billed as an impossible dream that can't be attained. And it's not entirely true. It's just difficult.
Yeah. And what's interesting is really, if you do go back and if you see this film again called Absentia, you can see like the seeds of a really, really great filmmaker. And I'm not just saying this. When we had Jeff Howard on, he talked about how he's like, he just knew something was like great about him. And I remember thinking and having this conversation with people, just being like, this is a really, like, there's some cool scares in this. Obviously it was low budget, but you could just see it. I swear to you.
Yeah, I want to check that out now.
I want him on the podcast.
It'll happen.
I agree.
Okay. One of my this week's in writing is I am breaking a network show with a writer friend of mine, and we broke the pilot, we had our characters, and then as we started building out what the series and season were going to be like, because we're going to pitch it if it's a network show, we have been told anyways by reps and producers that they prefer to hear pitches rather than actual pilots in network television. So we are prepping our pitch. So as part of our pitch, of course, we have to figure out what our season is so we can pitch that and what our series is. But as we started doing that, we felt ourselves not understanding what our characters were going after. And we were like, uh-oh, something's wrong. We have to rebuild something here. And what we did was we reverse engineered the character relationship we wanted. So I'll take a step back. If you think of network shows that you love, for me, it's like X-Files, Supernatural, like these shows that have character relationships that are just so fun to watch. I can watch Mulder and Scully do anything. They could go to a grocery store and I'd be like, cool, I'm so in on this episode. And that's super important because especially if your show's going to, be 14 seasons, God bless you, you're going to run out of story in some way. And it's really going to be the characters that pull you through and get people invested. And also, I think a part of network TV is that so much has already been done that's out there. It's almost hard to be like totally new and totally unique, except with your characters and their dynamics. So we went back, and instead of thinking about plot and story and the beats that we wanted to hit and the midpoints, we were like, what is the character dynamic between our two characters that people are going to absolutely fall in love with? And we spent an entire session of like an hour and a half just breaking down how fun they're going to be together. And then that got us re-excited. We're like, oh, okay, now we know that the pilot has to be different because they have to meet in a different way now that they're these two people. And the show and like how it's going to progress now has to be different because their wants are different now that they're these two people who interact together this way. And I just thought it was very interesting because when I start in like drama, hour-long drama, that's usually for streaming or kind of like quote unquote cable, I feel like I start from thematics and yes, characters, but not necessarily like how the characters are going to interact together on screen and what is their dynamic. I start with sort of like bigger ideas, but for network, it was sort of a different starting point that I think immediately made the show feel more fun and more networky. So that was just a learning lesson for me because it's my first network show that I've tried. And
sorry, was this a recommendation for you to try it that way?
No, that's just what we did.
Oh, so you just kind of cracked the code on your own.
I guess, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's interesting. Yeah, so not so much thematic, but more so character dynamic within each scene and how they're going to play out with each other.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
There's no one way to write. That is...
No one way.
Okay, I just have one more.
Okay.
I watched The Killer on Netflix with Michael Fassbender, the David Fincher film. Have you watched it yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. It was interesting because it was voiceover mostly throughout well, definitely within the first act. And then as the movie progresses, there is just voiceover.
Interesting.
And it pushes the story forward. It gives you insight on the mind of the killer. And I thought it worked. I love it. I also love David Fincher, and I kind of wish I saw the movie in a theater. I would just love to know, when you do see it, or anyone who has seen it, the opinion on the voiceover and if it worked, and just kind of study, at least in my opinion, why it did work. I do think it sort of worked because of the personality in which Fassbender is. And
like the actor or the character?
The character. The character is, I don't want to give away too much, but he's an internal character, and he's kind of alone. He's secluded. And I think that lends to the voiceover working.
Yeah.
And so it's a case by case basis, but it really did. It like pushed the entire story forward. And I was like, dude, voiceover.
Interesting. Because, yeah, a lot of people are against voiceover. They think it's a cheat. They think it's too easy. You're telling the audience something rather than showing them. But I think if you execute anything, people also say that about flashbacks and dream sequences. But of course, there are plenty of examples where those are so key to everything. That's cool. I'm super excited to watch it now.
You should watch it. Not only that, it has one of the best fight scenes that I've seen in a very long time. You know what? We need to talk about the killer when you watch it. We're going to break down this one fight scene that I was like sweating. Cool. My palms were actually sweating.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So
okay.
You'll know.
Awesome. Can I do, since you started talking about things that you've watched recently, can I finish out this week in writing with a couple things I've watched?
Absolutely.
One is Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix. It's an adult animated show. It's an hour long. Please go watch this show, guys. Please. If you don't like animation, watch it anyways, because you are going to realize what animation can do. It is so cinematic. It is so beautiful. It is violent. It is sexual, but all based in character. And the basic log line is that it takes place in around the 1600s in Japan, at a time when Japan has closed its doors to outsiders. But this one woman who is masquerading as a man, and she has since she was a child, who has blue eyes, has been rejected by society. If anyone sees her blue eyes, she's beaten, she's thrown out, she's treated like a dog or less than. And so she has grown up teaching herself how to become a samurai so she can get revenge on the 4 men who raped her mother. And that's why she has blue eyes, because a white man had raped her mother. And it's so fantastic, you guys. It just it came out of nowhere for me. Like, I learned about it watching Netflix Geek Week stuff, because Tomb Raider stuff is on there. And I was like, oh, what is this beautiful show? And then as soon as we saw the pilot, everyone I know is talking about it. Just, it's amazing. And this is a show that I think, because it was so under the radar, it didn't really become a hit for Netflix the way that they need it to for season 2 to come out. But I'm confident that word of mouth is going to make this thing a hit. So please go watch the pilot and then become obsessed like I am.
Is it based off of anything?
I don't actually know. I think the story that I read was that Michael Green is one of the writers. He's the co-creator of the show with his wife. He wrote Logan, for example. And it's the article that I read where they're interviewed, it says that they were inspired by their own daughter, because they have a mixed race daughter, and they wanted a show that empowered her, basically, and made her feel that her difference was not actually a curse. It was a superpower. So I don't know. That's all the sort of information I have on what it's based on.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. And then the second thing, and then I'll be done with This Week in Writing, is I finished Loki. We kind of binged the whole episode 3 to 6 last night. And have you seen it?
No, but I had the sense, because I was messaging you yesterday, and there was radio silence, and then the next text I got back from you was I just finished Loki, and I just read the text, was I'm exhausted. I just went through something and now I'm out of it. And
that's how it felt.
Yeah. I actually have 3 episodes left of Loki.
Okay,
It's okay. Go for it.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but I think like this week in writing part of this, of my experience in watching it, was I was absolutely confused the entire show. I still, I've read articles about what was season 2 about, and I still don't understand it. But Tom Hiddleston is such a good actor. He's so engaging to watch on screen. Every line he delivers is perfection. And then him paired with Owen Wilson and also Ouroboros
Yeah.
is like so good that like it's just completely watchable because I'm invested in like this little team being amazing and succeeding. And I don't understand what they're doing to succeed, but I just want them to succeed. And it was enough to make us binge it. Like
Yeah.
we didn't get it at all, but we just kept watching because we needed to know if they survived or not. And it's just an interesting lesson in writing.
Yeah. Well, one last note on this. I also have no idea what the show is about. And
No
if
idea.
it wasn't, I think you're absolutely right. If it wasn't for Hiddleston being so charismatic and Loki-ish, I don't
Yeah.
know if I would, if it wasn't him, I'm not sure I would finish this show.
100% agree.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Big topic.
All right. New topic. I'll set this up for us. Josh
Please.
and I both submitted a pilot. We went to writers group. My manager came to writers group because she is my manager, and I wanted notes from her on my pilot, and might as well come to writers group to deliver those notes. It was also sort of a crafty Machiavellian play on my part, because when she's with you guys, she's much nicer to me than when she's just with me. But she had notes on both Josh and I's pilots, which was that the concept is not clear. And it took me the entire session, and I feel like we had like an hour and a half, 2-hour session to like fully embrace what she was talking about and like let it sink in. Because to me, the pilot is very clear. Like the concept of what this show is, which is 3 amateur detectives who are in their 60s decide to take on a cold case from someone who died when they were teenagers. Like, how is that not clear? And then the more we started talking about it, the more I realized we were trying to do too much in the pilot. Like, there's a supernatural aspect. And because the audience is coming in the pilot and there's like a lot of supernatural stuff going on, they're like, oh, this is a supernatural show. But it's not. Like, that's not sort of the key to the show. That's not the point of the show. It's just an aspect of the show. One of the characters has a kind of like sixth sight. She has a sixth sense that allows her to sort of see beyond the veil. But that's not what the show's about. But because we had made it so much a part of that character's story in the pilot, that suddenly became confusing. And then also we had a character who dies in the pilot, but what the women are investigating are not her death, even though she's a friend of theirs. They're investigating the death that happened, back in the 80s when they were kids. And that's confusing too, because if there's a death that happens in the pilot from someone that they know, why are we not investigating that instead of the thing in the past? Like, and then we also did flashbacks. So even as I'm talking, you can tell there's a lot going on, right? We did flashbacks where, because these women are in their 60s, we had flashback to when they were teenagers in the 80s when that girl had disappeared. And that was confusing too, because it's like, oh, is this a show that's kind of like it, that we're going back and forth in time, and both of those stories are equally important and equally weighted. So the fact that all of this we were kind of shoving in the pilot that I thought was clear, now that I'm even regurgitating it, it's clear there was too much going on. And so when my manager read it, and I think all of your guys' notes pointed to this as well, there was a sense of like, well, what am I investing in? Which character am I investing in? What story am I investing in? Is it the supernatural? Is it the murder from 1986? Is it the murder now? And so now Dave and I, who I'm writing the pilot with, we have to go back and we're going to re-break the entire pilot and like really rethink what we need, like the grounding aspect of the pilot itself to be, as well as the show at large. Meaning, what, as an audience member, are you going to be investing in from day one and excited to watch every week as we move forward? And it's a lot of work. I don't want to do it, but I am excited now because I sort of see the light that like this show is going to be better.
Yeah, I feel like at that group, there was a lot thrown at you.
Yeah.
And you guys did what you just did, you're doing a very good job of handling it. And I think at the beginning of that, you said you needed to sit on it for like an hour or two.
Yeah.
I've been sitting on mine for like 4 days or whenever we had group. So just to kind of go into my issues, and then we're going to kind of bring this back. I almost feel like I have an opposite problem from what you just described. You threw a lot into your pilot. Whereas I think my pilot was not, there wasn't enough. There was just kind of this general concept. The idea of my pilot was this couple comes into this really affluent private school, and now they're suddenly thrust into like these school politics, and it's supposed to be a little White Lotus-y in there. And it's dealing with that. And then they become like the people that they don't want to become, essentially. That's just not enough. And everyone's been giving me the note. And I think I meant to talk to you because I've gotten the note that there's no hook. There needs to be more. And it's just something I've really been struggling with, because it's like in my head and heart, I know exactly what I want this show to be. However, it's just not that. So I get the note like, no, this is just not enough. It's not engaging. No one's going to care. You're not the first person who's like come up with this concept, this like, dynamic of these kind of people. It has to be something that's really that really pops and really gets attention, and there has to be a bigger conceptual hook. And I don't know why, but I've just been fighting that. Like, and I know everyone's right. That's the thing. But when I start implementing a hook, I think it starts changing the story a bit.
Yeah. I think your instinct is right. I think it is. And I think everyone, like, for example, at Writers Group, everyone was like, can they be con artists? And this is like kind of a big heisty kind of show. Or can they be spies or whatever? And I know that's not the show you want to write. You want to write something more like White Lotus, that's more grounded, that's more realistic, that's more about the characters and their interactions. And I think the solve is less about finding like a big genre hook, which is, I think, just the solution people are pitching you, and more about looking at how to make the thing that you love about it like shine harder.
Yeah.
And like I was thinking, even as you were talking about the show Community, where the main character in that show, like the only thing that's at stake for that show, and I know it's different, it's a comedy, but like yours is also a 30-minute. But the only thing that's at stake for him is like he was, I think, a lawyer who got found out that like he didn't have a degree. So he's being forced to go through community college, which he fucking hates because he's been on top of the world his whole life. And now he's in this stupid community college with a bunch of losers, but he has to go through it to get his degree so that he can like go back to his old life. And of course, the arc of the series is that the old life is not the life that is actually right for him and that he really actually wants. But like, that's all that's at stake, right? Yeah. So I think like what's at stake just has to be really important for your character and really transformative for how they behave and who they are and how they behave with others. So I feel like it's just, to be honest, like scene work and maybe like the choices of the scenes you've chosen that needs to be changed rather than like a huge concept. And then I think your concept will shine through.
I love hearing this, and I agree. Another thing that I was bumping into, and I was well aware of this, and it was pointed out to me, rightfully so by my manager and maybe by some other people, but my main characters were seemingly the least interesting people. Like they were just kind of like the run-of-the-mill people entering. And on one hand, I like it because it was like this arc of who the characters are, but I understand like there was no problems with my character, my lead, my main couple. And that's a problem if you're not really like invested in your main couple and like, who cares about this?
Yeah. So, there needs to be drama between them somehow.
There needs to be some drama. And
it doesn't have to be conflict. It just has to be like drama.
Just drama. Yeah.
Because you want them to be like a loving couple. You don't want them to be like to have secrets from each other that are dangerous or anything like that, right? They're just a loving couple who like goes through some shit together.
Yeah. I will say after group though, I did start having some thoughts I was like, okay, how can I kind of shoehorn this bigger idea into exactly what I want to try to like elevate it just a little bit. I'm going to have some thoughts and we'll see if it works or not. Okay. I know you're going to read the next draft and be like, what have you done? But this, what's interesting about it? It's part of the process. This is definitely one of those things where I don't want to write it if it's not exactly
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm open to ideas, but like the core of what I wanted to do in the get-go and with my wife, what we had talked about, like that was what excited me about it. And
Yeah.
then once you start adding on, and I'm just bringing this up because I think this can happen to anybody. Once you start adding on things, it's like a sandwich. You're like, I just want a peanut butter and jelly. And someone's like, that's not good. Here, take like some of this and some of that. And like before you know it, you have like a double from In-N-Out. And you're like, I don't eat meat.
Yeah.
I don't want this. That was a horrible
No,
comparison.
it was great. I totally agree with you. And like, you were so passionate about the idea. You were so excited to write. You wrote it so quickly. Like, all of these are indicators that your gut is right. And I would hesitate to not listen to your gut on this one.
So it's just Zen Tasha coming out.
Aloha, man.
Oh, we're still on Aloha. I forgot. It still exists.
So I guess let's get into how are you going to rethink this now that you have these notes, now that you are torn between like the big genre version and your gut version. Like, what's the next step for you?
I've already kind of started to write notes down of how to create some drama with the characters and maybe elevate the concept just a bit. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try that route just to know. And I'll send it to group and send it to, but if it like completely changes what the story is, then I'm not going to do that. But my next step is I'm just going to do another pass on it with adding in some of the elements that we talked about before group with your manager, with my manager, and I'm going to just see if it works.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to keep the core.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to change scenes at all, or just work within the scenes and the structure that you currently have, or don't know yet?
I don't know yet. I think I've already started to, I do kind of know. Some scenes are absolutely going to change, but some are not going to change. Like I think there's a party, for instance, in my pilot. Like that's not going to change. There's still going to be a party, but maybe there's a different nuance to some of the conversations. And
yeah. I think if there's like an objective to the party, because it felt like the characters just go to the party and the party is about meeting the characters. But if they have like something they need to get out of it, and it can be something small, like information about the PTA.
Sure.
Is it called the PTA? Like it could be something small, but like all of the different people at the party are obstacles to getting that thing. Then I think suddenly the party like has a purpose. Because the party itself was great. Like it's clear that we're meeting a lot of the characters we're going to know for the rest of the season, the series. The environment is immediately clear because this party is nuts, but they're all just parents. So yeah, that's a key scene. It's great.
One other thing that I'm going to try to do is like I was like my couple was this loving couple. They didn't really have many problems, but I'm going to we were talking about try to add some drama. I think I'm going to maybe make them a little bit more insecure, maybe I'm just going to try to add some things into to their character.
Even if like one of them doesn't want their daughter to go to this school and one very much does, and they've just listened to the mom, for instance, and the dad is still like, I don't want to do this. Like that's at least conflict. That's not like there's something inherently wrong in their relationship, but there is something they can argue about that they disagree on.
Yeah. And your next step with Dave.
Oh God. So we have to like re-break the whole pilot.
How do you feel about that? Let's just pause real quickly. When that idea comes in your brain, where are you mentally?
It's exhausting. Like there's a part of you that wants to give up because you've worked so hard on this. And I'm also redoing the pilot on my other show that I mentioned earlier in This Week in Writing. It's a lot, but as we've talked about on the podcast before, like in your gut when you have to, and we have to. And so we can't, because it's the Thanksgiving holiday here, we're not going to meet for another week or two. So I think that's maybe helpful in a way to sort of give us a break from like the emotions of this. But for us, the next step is going to be thinking about, okay, like really going back to theme. Like what is the theme of the show in general? And then how do we make it so clear that this first episode is about this idea? And all the other stuff, the supernatural stuff, the flashbacks, like that is all going to be in service of this larger theme, but not cloud like the idea of what this pilot is. So actually, speaking of Mike Flanagan, I started thinking about the Haunting of Hill House pilot, which has supernatural aspects to it, but it doesn't like overwhelm the episode. It doesn't cloud what the show is about. It doesn't become too busy with like weirdness. It's just very subtly sort of seeded in and then kind of punches you in the face right at the end. And so like that's a structure that is what we intended anyway. So we're going to look at that. And then I think the pilot of Haunting of Hill House also does an incredible job. It follows one main character, Steven. But you get his family, right? You see different parts of his family. You know that there's other characters we're going to invest in later, but we have a point of view that's our way into the show. And he has a very specific point of view on the world. He does not believe in the supernatural. He does not believe in ghosts. And he has been estranged from his family because of his beliefs that what happened when they were kids didn't actually happen. And so that informs the entire pilot. Every conversation he has on the phone, in person, with his family is all kind of pointing back to this sort of problem in his life about not believing his family. So I think that's something we want to look at as well, is how to make sure that all of our scenes are pointing back to the theme and like the subject matter of our show.
Yeah.
And I'm excited by that because I think I can already see that the show is going to be much stronger. And I think it will challenge us to really hone in on, for example, like the introduction of our characters or what our midpoint actually is. I think as we talked after writers group, we're like, there are some really cliche moments. Like Josh hated one of our characters who was like, this guy's a cliche. And I was like, he is a cliche. I've hated him ever since we created him, but I didn't know what else to do there.
Sorry.
So now we're both like, in our gut, we knew. So we had to follow our gut and we're going to get fucking rid of him. And just be better writers. We're just going to be better writers. That's our next step.
Listen, you don't have to get rid of him. I just thought when you saw him, you knew something bad was going to happen.
You're right. He's terrible. Like, it's terrible.
It's not. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that that's all.
It was our first draft. Now it was our second draft, but it's not good. We're restarting.
In fairness, there was a lot of things that weren't pinged the first time through. And I can't even believe I didn't bring up the cliche guy. I didn't think he was that cliche, by the way. But anyway.
He's pretty cliche.
And your group was a perfect example of, personally, I really like I love this concept. And I really do. Like, and I told you in your pilot, when these women get together, I feel like it's the car is off and running. And I love that. I just love seeing their dynamic together. And so my issue was like the setup of it. Mm-hmm. Having said that, everyone else was bringing up some points that some I agreed with, and but I love it. That's the core of your show, and that pilot is great. I love this idea. I'm glad you're sticking with it because
for sure, we love it too, and there's definitely a lot about it we love that we're excited about, and we're excited to re-break it. It's like exhausting to think about, but I think we both see what the show can be now. Like a really prestige, really great show. So we're excited to re-break it.
Listener, if you could have heard the notes that were thrown at Tasha and Dave, you would be in awe that they're still writing this thing. You guys were getting so many opinions at one point. I was like, I don't know, man.
Oh God. I told afterwards, Dave texted me. He's like, oh, that went well with your manager, right?
Dave.
And like, she seemed to like it. I was like, no, she hated it. She was just smiling because she's in writers group and she's with you guys. But if we were just on a conversation alone, she would have been like, I don't understand what this is. I don't understand where it's going. Like, what is this? Why are you writing it? Like, oh God. But she's very kind on the actual writers group.
All right.
I just need to have notes all the time with her in writers group. That's the way to survive.
Bring her in. She's amazing. She came in, we talked, she gave me notes that were actually really freaking helpful. She didn't even read the pilot.
She's super insightful because she also has produced a bunch of television and movies. So she comes at it from a perspective that's outside us.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. Is there more?
No, that's it. I feel like as part of our continual spec check, which we didn't do because we don't really have one. I guess this is our spec check. This is where we are with our pilots.
Yeah.
We'll continue to update you on where we are with this clarity of concept problem. But also, if you guys have a clarity of concept problem, like you've gotten that note, or you yourself are like, I don't know if I've really clarified what the hell this show is about, let us know, because we can talk about it. You can sign on to our Patreon. We can talk about it in the writers chat community.
For sure.
All the things. So yeah, this is great. I'm excited. Blah.
Me too.
Okay. Quote of the day. I've never read a book or attended a class on screenwriting. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I like what I've got going on naturally and want to protect that. The one question I will ask myself as I'm rereading a script for the 60th time is, am I entertained? Am I entertained still? And if the answer is yes, I'll assume other people will be too. Wentworth Miller. Please remember to rate and subscribe. Follow us at ActTwoWriters for more awesome writing stuff. You can follow me, Tasha, at Story Thursday on Instagram or on Twitter at Tasha 3.0.
I'm Joshua Hallman on Twitter, Josh Hallman on Instagram.
And as always, the Act Two podcast is a production of Act Two, a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. This episode was edited by Paul Lundquist.